Alright folks, just wanted to make a video here on a recent purchase that I made. It's the Cold Steel GI Tanto knife. I have a camping trip coming up, and my buddies and I, we like to buy a couple of things and go out and try them out and have some fun playing in the woods. And I had seen a couple reviews on this knife, all of them very positive, and I approach things with a little bit of skepticism. So I decided to buy it and give it a try. It's not that it's a Cold Steel knife. I have lots of Cold Steels, and I like the brand very much. But I do have some reservations about this knife being as good as everybody says it is. It is what's considered to be a high carbon steel knife, and I think people get worked up. Oh, high carbon steel, it's tough, it's easy to sharpen, it's wilderness survival. And I don't think that all carbon steels are the same. There's a couple of different classifications, and I'm not a steel expert. The first thing is that there's low, medium, and high carbon steels, and for knife making, they typically use higher carbon steels, which is a little bit funny too, because folks will think that, oh, it's got a lot of carbon in it, and that's what makes it strong. Steels like VG10 and LMAX and S30V all have more carbon than high carbon steel. The differences between like a carbon steel and a stainless steel is stainless steels have more components added to them, the main one being chromium, which actually makes them more stain resistant than carbon steels, which tend to rust pretty easily. Anyhow, this knife is made out of 1055, not 1095, and not all carbon steels are made the same. I think that carbon steel, if done correctly and done right, can be a great steel that is tough, has good wear resistance, has some give and flex to it. Essie makes great knives out of high carbon steel. When you start to look at this knife and that it costs $25, you start to wonder, is it really made with quality heat treat and the best steel that it could possibly be made out of? And I don't think it is. We'll find out. I mean, I'm looking at it objectively, and when I go try it out or test it out, whatever language you want to use, I'm going to have open eyes. I'm not going to try to do anything that would purposely break or damage the knife. But being 1055 and not 1095, 1055 is more of a throwing knife steel because it has more give and flex to it. I believe it's a little bit cheaper than a 1095 to manufacture, and I'm going to expect to get more edge deformation than I would out of a 1095 knife, just given that 1055 seems to have, like I said, more give. I think it'll have less edge retention, and I think it'll bend a little bit easier. So I really do expect this edge to get beat up pretty good. When you look at a knife that costs $25, for me, there's a difference between a value knife and a cheap knife. It's kind of funny. I saw a review on YouTube where the guy was saying the knife was a good value. He paid $10 for it. It was, a low-end knife. But he was also saying that the lock continually failed on him. So I said, how can you call that knife a good value knife? When the lock disengages, and his response was, well, it's only $10, and and it does cut stuff. And so for me, that's a cheap knife. It's a knife that you didn't pay a lot of money for, but it's not a good value. Good value means that I bought a knife. I could have paid $500 for it, but that knife is worth what I paid, or it's worth more than what I paid. A cheap knife just means I didn't spend a lot of money on it. This is a cheap knife, and I'm sure that it has some value, but I don't expect this to be the same caliber as a Becker or an Essie or a Scrapyard or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I expect it to be a lot lower. So when you start to talk about knife, trunk knife or a bug out knife or emergency survival knife or whatever those things are, do you really want it to be $25 knife, or do you maybe spend $50, $70 to $100 and get something that is of a little bit better quality? Typically in emergency, I'd want to have better gear than if I was just playing around with my buddies in the woods. Alright, all that being said, this blade ships like most Cold Steels in the blue box. It comes very sharp, like most of their knives, and being a carbon steel is relatively easy to sharpen up quickly and easily. It sharpens quite well, and it comes with what is a phenomenal sheath. It's the SecureX sheath, which had this loop, kind of like for a drop-down carry. It was set up for a right-handed person. I'm a left-handed person, so I took it off, and then I decided not to put it back on because I will probably lash this to a bag or just slip it into a bag, and this loop was kind of getting in the way. One of the things that was surprising to me when I take a look at this knife and I see the finish on the handle, and here you can kind of see some roughness where it really just looks like almost like it was stamped out steel, and then it had these polypropylene scales added to it, is the quality of the sheath. I've bought much more expensive knives. A good example is it's the Boker Bob, the bug out blade that I bought was $100, and it's a Chinese made knife like the GI Tanto, and it just came with the worst sheath ever. Fortunately, a buddy of mine makes Kydex sheath, so he helped me out with that. But this sheath is really nice. So when you start to take a look at, the overall package of being $25, I think that this is probably $25 sheath. If you were going to buy, if you buy a knife and then you went to buy an aftermarket sheath, this would probably set you back about $25 and probably makes up a large portion of the manufacturing costs of this set. Anyhow, the GI Tanto is about 4 millimeters thick. It is coated carbon steel, which is typical to help reduce rust on the blade. It says it has a 7-inch blade, but I think that when you look at the cutting surface, it's really closer to 6 inches with a 5-inch handle. I don't have the exact weight, but it does feel pretty good in the hand. It feels well balanced, and regardless of how you feel about Chinese-made knives or 1055 or high carbon or $25 cheap knives or whatever, I really am excited to give it a whirl and try it out. I imagine it'll be kind of fun to use, and it'll certainly provide some entertainment. And I'm going to make some videos as we use the knife and as I do different things with it, and I'll post them up and see how it goes. I am thinking about stripping the coating off and then doing some kind of forced patina on it. If I do that, I'll make sure to show that as well. Anyhow, I just wanted to kind of show off the new purchase, give some thoughts on it, and I will be making more videos as we continue to use it. Thanks, everybody.